Thank you, Martin. And yeah, the pleasure about sitting next to each other is all mine. Martin is not only my great colleague from IBM, you're working from probably at least 8 years together in a single project, but Martin also was my great mentor, also in the DevOps area. Guys, what I want to talk to you is, yeah, Martin put that in perfect words. It's going to be about the collaboration, because nowadays there is a lot of discussions about artificial intelligence, about machine learning, about ChatOps, about pretty much how AI, automation, and everything is going to replace people in certain things. And the truth is, personally, I don't believe that. Secondly, there are parts of probably each single industry where the help from AI or just automation, and I will bold this statement, it's not always AI. Sometimes it's something really easy, even trivial, but is missing in daily tasks, in our daily operations. As DevOps, we know a lot about daily operations because those tend to be really boring, really, repetitive, and so on. There is, for like probably also 8-7 years maybe, a lot of discussions about the ChatOps. So what the ChatOps really is. And the truth is, there will be only a few sentences and slides about ChatOps itself. I'm going to talk about what's happening underneath without all of these fancy LLMs and AIs. So ChatOps is the methodology or ideology that is based on the conversation between people and some automation, some machine that is responsible for doing something. So we can say it is a way how we can automate the way to tell something to do something else. Obviously, there is a lot of use cases in our DevOps work, right? Because my friend, dear friend here, he really often comes to me and he asks me if I can run a build for him. Because obviously I don't want to give him permissions to run builds. I don't want him to go to the Tekton or Jenkins or whatever, because guy is smart enough to work in the IDE, his preferred IDE, and do code and not running builds. The truth is the build should be triggered automatically. It should happen in nanosecond. We all know that. We are DevOps. We want everything to work as smoothly as possible. Yeah, but truth is that it's not always the case, because you do not have infrastructure, there is latency in the network, there is power outage in your power center, whatever can happen, and he's waiting for the build to do. So he comes to me and he tells me, Krzysztof, come on, run the build. I'm waiting 5 minutes already. How long can I wait? So what I can do for him is I can give him some kind of the API between the Jenkins or Tekton or whatever, Argo, to perform the action that he wants, okay? Very often it's related with some kind of communicators like Slack or whatever. I think the Slack is standard now, right? The benefit of doing that approach is not only my saved time, it's not only my friend saved time, it is also the transparency, and it is also the trackability, because if he is going to perform the action using something, he knows it has been done. He can see it has been done, because on the Slack you have this message box. Okay, he wrote that he wanted this to happen. So there is a lot of good stuff about it. When I was trying to combine this presentation here and I was thinking about ChatOps, I always misspelled ChatOps with chatbot. And the truth is that chatbots are something that are with us for way more longer time than ChatOps. But the truth is, and I was thinking about that, why I'm always misspelling that and how that differs. Well, it differs because the chatbot is something that has been provided for the end user to give him some information. The ChatOps is provided for the end user to allow him perform some actions. But the truth is, it has a lot of common in terms of how it's done. And as I mentioned you before, it's not always about artificial intelligence because Clippy 30 years ago was, in my opinion, probably one of the first chatbots with the visual layout, right? So he was telling you to click here, do that. If you click here, the word cup is going to jump on the screen, whatever it's going to happen. And it was not artificial intelligence. It didn't require the NVIDIA GPUs or whatever. It was the simple state machine. So if you click on that, it's going to happen. If you added that clipboard, the Clippy will show you that, right? And how that affects the business today. Because I'm from IBM. This is the largest IT company in the world. And ChatOps is also something that IBM has productized. So in IBM Gen AI Cloud Pack, we have also the ChatOps-based functionalities. Also, IBM, as largest IT company, has the most amount of COBOL developers. We do work on the Z mainframes, right? Probably guys here, actually DevOps guys might know a lot about mainframes, right? So you know how great it is to work in legacy systems, not always legacy, but powerful, right? Really robust systems. And IBM saw the opportunity to speed up something, to provide some additional functionalities, to make sure that you're able to make money by saving money. So, for example, the IBM Z ChatOps is a great tool that you are able to use to integrate with Slack and to know exactly what is happening with the Z mainframe. What's happening with the performance, get some logging, etc. Everything with some predefined, obviously, commands or text messages that you need to put to the bot for the Slack that you're going to communicate with. So this is also something very, very, very similar to, as I mentioned before, Clippy did, right? And I was still thinking about that. Is the ChatOps functionality or the ChatOps methodology something that is so fancy that we need to talk about it? And why it is, and what it really is. And I was working on daily basis stuff, right? And I'm the DevOps engineer, as Marcin said. I'm working with approximately 200 developers right now. They are combined in maybe 25 squads, maybe 20 squads. It depends. All of them are working on their own microservices. They want to build the applications as soon as possible. Not only that, they want to make sure these applications are tested before they're going to stage environments where actually the QAs or these developers are going to log in and check if everything is fine. So what they did in the past, in last few years, they were coming and asking our DevOps team what we can do to make sure that we are able to run all of these tests and on the other hand, not having these build pipelines taking 2 hours. Okay, so here is something, finally we have some meat. Here is something that we can work on. So what is the API between me and between you? By you, I mean developer. Obviously the pull request. The pull request for me is the magic in my daily basis work. Because if someone has done something and he wants me to build that, it must go through the pull request process. The code must be reviewed, the test must be executed, must pass, the security checks must be marked as okay. Only if this is done, I can merge that, or developer can merge that, and it's going to the build. If that is not done, no way, okay? So this is our final API between me and the development team. And they came and asked what we can do to make sure that all of these tests are running, and on the other hand, they don't take 2 hours. How can I know what tests you want to run in some particular use cases? Okay, if you're going to work on multi-module project, I know how to do that. If the changes in this module, I'm going to execute tests against this module, not a problem. What in case if you have single module, the changes were in some files, I don't know that, I'm not the developer, I'm not the DB2 expert, I'm not Postgres expert, I don't know what test I need to execute. But what you can do is to provide me that information that next to all of the unit tests that must happen and must be okay, there is a particular test suit case that needs to be executed and verified that you didn't broke anything. You need to provide me that information. How to do that? Well, you can do, it's not the slide, it's here. How you can do that really easily? You can just provide me the information via pull request. And it's really easy because for now, okay, we are not super fancy, we're still using Jenkins in our project, okay? But the bottom of that is that if only the developer on the on the screenshot on the bottom, if you provide the BVT something or only BVT, then BVT tests are going to be executed. How I can do that? I can do that really easily because I can use the webhooks from the GitHub, and I can fetch the body of the webhook on the Jenkins side or Tekton side or Argo workflows. I can fetch that, I can check what was there, and based on that, I can really easily orchestrate what is going to happen. So in terms of Jenkins, for example, if there will be, let's say, in Jenkins that comes out of the box. So everyone hates Jenkins. I know this is legacy, but it has a tons of great functionalities. So if there will be the trigger phrase, for example, in the pull request webhook, I can easily parse that in Jenkins, and I can also parse that not even in Jenkins, but in the Jenkins file itself, checking the body of the GitHub pull request webhook, and based on the content of that webhook, I can orchestrate which tasks needs to be executed. So my friend is going to write BVT, and the BVT framework is going to be executed on the test pipeline. For me, it sounds like a ChatOps, right? I know everything. Everyone thinks the ChatOps must be integrated with Slack. It might be. On the other hand, wouldn't it be too, over-engineering to ask him to go to Slack, provide information which pull request he wants to rerun the test for, or run additional tests for that given pull request? Maybe it would be over-engineering. Would there be the use cases where that would be the exactly thing what you want to do? Obviously, there are such use cases. There is not nothing that is ultimate and nothing that is completely useless. There are different use cases that we can use webhooks for. Deployment of the container images or the whole product. As I mentioned, I'm working with like 25 squads. All of them are providing microservices. Approximately, there is like 40 of these microservices. what my team is mainly responsible for is to bundle the final project. So we are bundling the Red Hat operator. We are using Ansible to implement the orchestration scripts to deploy in very particular order, which microservices needs to be deployed, what needs to be configured in terms of the security, blah, blah, blah. Nothing really fancy and not related with this project. But if there is a change in the configuration that might affect the deployment, it might make sense to be able to quickly run the deployment and check if everything is okay. Instead of going to the guy who is responsible for installation framework or job that installs the product, I can, in probably one man day, configure my job to call another job or whatever, or implement all of this logic to deploy the product itself in my job and execute it only if the guy is going to provide the command deploy product, okay? So again, this is the second or third already use case where developers are able to give me exactly information, what needs to happen, what needs to be tested, what needs to be verified, and only if that is done, we are going to merge that, we are going to productize that, okay, all of these changes. I talked about that. Okay, finally, the Slack notifications. Probably everyone in this room who have Slack in the company and uses some CI have the integration with the Slack. But guys, for me, one of the Slack channels where all of these jobs are being posted, or the results of these jobs, this is my first go-to channel in the morning, because the more red it is, the more green I am, right? Because something is clearly wrong. Again, simple, really simple stuff to do. If I'm working with 25 different microservices, so my friend who is working on 2 of them, he's not going to check what happened over the weekend with 25 microservices or with 40 different builds, because he will not see anything from that. It's for me to check what's the right ratio green to red, right? But for him, he wants to have the dedicated Slack channel for his own squad to check if everything is green, because if something is red, then they are in alarm, right? So again, this can be really easily integrated. Going to the main topic here. Why all of that is important? Why I need that quick API between me as a DevOps and my dear friend from the development team? Because we both have managers, and often his manager is not my manager. We might have some additional manager who is working on some crit seats because there is the deployment for critical customer, or the GA is coming, right? Whatever. Information is the key in whatever you are working on. If this is the biggest IT company in the world, or if this is you 2 guys working on the startup in the garage. If you are not going to talk to each other, yeah, probably you're not going to be next Bill Gates, right? So communication is the key here. And I'm going back, 25 squads, few managers, 200 developers. The trackability, what went into the product, is crucial. We've done a lot after IBM standardized on GitHub to make sure our trackability is on the best possible level. Before GitHub, we were using RTC. Maybe some of you remember that. Wasn't great, wasn't terrible. What it had great as the functionality, at the end of the final build, you had the whole list of fixes, features, whatever you were working on, from the last release to current build. Everything was there. And also that was compared to the previous build. So yeah, pretty much everything you want to know was there. In GitHub, not really. So you're having 40 repositories, 50 repositories. You don't even know which branch guys are using. This is main, master, develop, release branch for something. You don't know that. You need to have the single source of truth. Git, ChatOps, GitOps, everything is ops oriented. For me, everything is Git oriented. So the single source of truth, like in the GitOps, in Argo, and so on, is in GitHub. We've done a lot. We've implemented the dashboards. So after each build, there was the direct push to the cloud database. We were implementing these UIs to make sure that developers and managers are able to go there and check if the build is already there in the product, right? But again, if you have 25 squads, like 40 different container images, the issue was with UI on the right side. Which microservices is that? Yeah, you don't know that probably, right? But if there is a GitHub task open or Git task open, then you have something to already touch, right? So there is no more slides. They weren't great anyway. But guys, I want to talk to you about how using the simple, really simple solutions can make the difference on the daily basis work. So one of my greatest, the most liked by me questions on the interview, technical interview, is in Git repository, if you have the command line, how you can check what's in your current branch, what were the latest changes. Yeah, you might be surprised. A lot of people don't know that. The git log command, too much, because the ID shows that, right? Knowing the really basic stuff, it is important because you can use that. So, guys, what we can see here. You can see nothing. Now, probably you can still see nothing, but what it is, obviously this is done differently in different organizations. If there is two of you, you're not going to create tasks probably because he will just tell you to fix something. But if you have a lot of squads, a lot of repositories you are working with on daily basis, you are ending up with tracker, with the repository in which you are having all of these issues that are open for your product. So this is the issue open in one of such trackers repository. So one of developers opened that issue and he started work on that. Okay, I can see the label, I can see the squad, I know who to go in terms of is that important, is that in the build, etc., etc. But what we can do, how we were able to really automate the process and make sure that if the release manager or development manager is going to see such issue, he will know if this is something alarming or is this already taken care. So, as you know, probably in GitHub there are keywords. If you are going to put fixes in your comment, in your pull request commit message, and you are going to merge such pull request where it was the commit message fix or fixes, that will close the issue automatically, right? Again, different organizations, sometimes it's desired. I would prefer to have it that way. In big companies, not always you can do that because that needs to be verified before the task is going to be closed. So because of that, instead of fixes, we're using the fixes issue phrase. It might be whatever. It might be Alfred. So after that, we are asking our developers, again, my dear friend, to provide the information which issue is, which task in GitHub is that pull request going to resolve. He's putting that information here, and obviously, automatically, GitHub will link that pull request with the issue here. Okay, is that a lot? It is a lot. Is that enough? It's not enough. Why? Because I know only that this pull request in one of the microservices repository has been opened, it has been merged. I don't know if the build has completed successfully. Even if that has completed successfully, I don't know if that was delivered to production. I don't know if that's in our standalone installer or if this is already deployed to cloud. Is that already deployed to weekly deployment on production, or is that only on dev? I don't know that. But what we can do is, based on that comment on the previous task, fixes issue, we can make sure that after the build of this microservice our guy is working on, we are running some checks and some notifications. And here I need to give you a little bit of 2 sentences of boring stuff. Our product, how it's done. So 40 container images, we're bundling that into one operator, case bundle, doesn't matter how we call that. Let's call that standalone installer. How we are doing weekly cloud deployments? Very similarly. So how it's done? The net of that is the file that's called digest.yam file. It might be called differently. This is how it's called. What we have here is the list of all of our microservices that are going to be bundled into the standalone installer, or that are going to be used for weekly deployment, because next to the names of these microservices, we have the exact informations of the tags. Disclaimer, it's duplicated information because we are standardizing in standalone installer not on tags, but on the digests, okay? This is why the file is called digest.yam file. So we have the list, single source of truth, with information that these 40 container images, we have information for single one of them, what is the version of them, and that is going to be bundled, compiled, delivered to customers if the GA is today. But we still do not have that information, that bug information, if all of the fixes are there for both cloud and for standalone installer. So what we are doing when we are bundling the final project or running the weekly deployments, we are just fetching that list, and I will go with you how it's done really quickly. So one by one, going line by line, container image name after container image name, we are checking the tag or the digest. And what is interesting is that if you are using NPM has that, or there is the Recon plugin, that if you're building application, then automatically after the build there is going to be created tag in your GitHub repository and a Git repository, right? So your container image will be created and the repository will be tagged. If the container image version or application version matches anyhow to the tag, that's good enough for me, okay? Because if I will have a look at that friend of mine who opened the task for the glossary service, and he opened the pull request with the fix, he provided information for which issue this fix is. After this has been merged, the build completed, and the tag has been created in his repository. So I can quickly have a look on the digest.yam file. And if I will just copy paste that, I'm doing that manually, but obviously this is done via our automation. If I will go to this repo and I will check the commits, this is what the API in GitHub does. So we are just going to list the commits. This is GitLog. This is the output of the GitLog, but in the UI version, right? So this is why using the really simple tools is important. Instead of master, I'm going to use the tag. Yeah, instead of the commit hashes, you can use tags as well in this API, and that will list you that will show you the GitLog. So if I have already the Git log for this version of container image, this version of application, finally, this version, this state of repository, what I can do and what I'm doing for each and every single build, I'm going one by one for each of these items in that Git log list, and I'm checking if the issue is linked. If the issue is linked, then what I'm doing is I'm going to this issue and I'm putting the simple information that this fix is available in certain version of our product, okay? If the fix is intended for 2 different versions of the product, then there will be two entries. And why it is important? Obviously, the guy from development team, he's able to check if the build completed because he delivered the fix. What he needs to do after the build is completed, if he wants to have the good night, he wants to check the digest.yam file and check if for sure our automation after the build updated the digest.yam file with the new version of his glossary service, right? So he's already okay. He don't need to take care of anything. But what is important for me and what is important for management is that bug information. That, for example, this task that has been opened as a defect, okay, the fix has been merged, but also the fix is already available in the final bundled product. Okay? And as I mentioned you, this is exactly what we are doing here. So what I showed you on the UI, our automation, the GitHub API does exactly the same. So this is the really simple, those are 2 for loops. First for loop goes through the digest.yam file, and second for loop goes since starting with the first Git log. So starting with, do we still have it? With the first commit, like here. And it goes one by one, until he finds the pull request in which that comment is already available. So if there is a comment already added by the automation that this fix is available in the installer that has been created 2 days ago, then I don't need to put additional information that it's available in the installer created today. Or if it was deployed 2 weeks ago, I don't need to provide information, it's deployed today. But if the information is not there, it's worth to put that information that it is available. Even if the fix was added 3 weeks ago, and even if the installer is available for the 3 weeks, then no one knows that until the information is provided. So who can provide that information? A dear friend of mine from the development team can take his time, do everything manually. He can then take my time and ask if this is already completed and if this can be verified and so on. Instead of that, we can use the really simple automation. I'm calling that GitLog. We can call that ChatOps, where our chat is not the Slack channel, but the pull request window in the GitHub. That's pretty much it what I guys wanted to share with you. So this is basically the automation. This is basically the leveraging of really simple utilities that we're using on a daily basis. Probably every one of you uses Git. Probably most of you uses Jenkins or whatever CI you are using. And I'm sure that parsing the webhooks is available everywhere. I'm sure that checking the Git log is available everywhere. And if only your organization, if only your projects are growing and you see that the trackability becomes the issue, it might be okay to go with all of these fancy solutions. It's usually better to use the simple solutions because maintenance, implementation, and delivering, productizing that is often really simple. thank you, guys. That's pretty much it from my end. If there are any questions, we can talk later. I will be here. Yeah, thank you.